What's up guys, welcome back to the channel. If you're new, my name's Chris and here we explore products, places, and things that help us live a more enjoyable life. Today we're gonna run through the open upper versus the new Specialized Crux. This is a video request that I get quite frequently, second really only to the Crux versus Athos. And it's no surprise, the open upper and the new Specialized Crux are both exceptional bikes. So let's dive right into it. The new Specialized Crux as well as the open upper are kind of on the upper tier, if you will, of the gravel bike frames. They're incredibly light, fast, nimble, and many folks out there are using them as kind of a do-it-all bike. One that's purposed not just for gravel, but also for road. So if you're looking for a bike that's gonna help you haul luggage or go bike packing, while both of these bikes certainly could, you could make some modifications to make that happen. I don't think that these are the bikes for you. But if you're looking to go from point A to point B incredibly fast, I think these two bikes are the absolute ticket. So I'm gonna lay out a few ideas and thoughts after having owned both of these bikes for several months. If you've seen any of my other videos, it's no secret that I own the S-Works Crux frame set. Now, I didn't do a traditional build of picking the Expert Pro or S-Works models. I built mine from the frame up, taking parts from my existing open upper. So it lies kind of somewhere between the Pro and the S-Works build. At the time of this recording, I've got about 600 miles logged on it, up, down, all around, road, gravel, really chunky stuff, smooth fire roads, and it's been a great bike. You've probably seen on Instagram that prior to owning the new Specialized Crux, I owned an open upper and I went everywhere with that bike. I logged just under 1,000 miles on it between March, April of this year up until about mid-October when I bought the Crux frame set. And I took the upper everywhere with me. That became my gravel do-it-all bike. I did a couple of races, although I wouldn't say I was necessarily competing for a podium spot. I did the Wasatch All-Road out of Heber City, Utah, and I did BWR Cedar City out of Cedar City, Utah. I even did a handful of road group rides on the upper and it performed phenomenally. In fact, the upper was one of the first bikes I've ever owned where I was always excited to ride it. It always put a smile on my face to hop on the upper. The builds on these bikes were nearly identical. In fact, the very first version of the new Crux was exactly the same as the upper because I basically just swapped all the parts over from the upper because you guys all know it's 2021, it's nearly impossible to get parts. So I swapped all the parts over from the upper to build up the Crux. Originally, I was running a 1-by system on the Crux, the same that I was running on the upper. I've since switched to a double chainring on the new Crux, but other than that, these are very similar builds. There hasn't really been much of an exchange or swap between parts in the two bikes. And on a side note, a lot of people knock the double chainring on a gravel bike. I just want to say that I found no issues with it. It's performed flawlessly on the new Crux. So if you're considering a 1-by or 2-by or double chainring, I think double chainring is totally the way to go. Anyways, let's dive right into these two bikes. Let's start with price, just looking at frames. The S-Works Crux frame set comes in at $5,500. The open upper frame set comes in at $4,500. And I think you also ought to consider the Crux Pro frame set, which comes in at $3,200. Not insignificant amounts of money by any means. I'm a big fan of buying secondhand or used bikes. The way that bikes are made these days, I feel like you can get tens of thousands of miles on them. And I think a lot of us sell or get rid of our bikes before they've even really been broken in. It's kind of like my old Toyota truck that I have, bought it with 180,000 miles on it. It's got 220,000 miles on it right now, runs like a champ. Anyways, I think that the open upper is probably the ticket if you're looking for a used bike. Now you can find them on the market for between $2,500 to $3,000, making it a much more viable option. But if we're comparing apples to apples, new frame to new frame, the Crux Pro is probably the best value out of these three frame sets. It's $1,300 less expensive than the open upper, and it's 65 grams lighter. And if you're considering something on the used market, I think the open upper would take a win there because there are more available. The new Specialized Crux just really isn't out there on the used market, and the prices that people want in this market are just unreal. So if there's a category winner here, I suppose it's the Crux, just based on the Pro frame set and the value there. You can't have a discussion about these two bikes without talking about just how incredibly light they are. The open upper frame set comes in at 880 grams. The S-Works Crux frame set comes in 155 grams lighter at a whopping 725 grams, incredibly light. And let me tell you, as you're riding these, you can feel just how light the Crux is. It just floats across the gravel. It floats up the climbs. Not really, like the difference in weight is negligible. It's about a quarter pound for us Americans. And I think if you were to put these bikes side by side, I don't know if you'd really be able to tell the difference if you lifted both of them up. Took them out for a spin, again, I don't know if you'd really be able to tell the difference just based on weight alone. So then you have to ask yourself, is it worth it to spend an extra $1,000 over the open upper to get the S-Works Crux to save 155 grams? Or should you consider maybe a used upper or the Crux Pro frame that's 55 grams lighter and you save $1,300? I suppose if there's a winner in this category, it goes to the Crux. Again, because of the Pro, it's an incredible value at $3,200 for the frame at 825 grams. And I say incredible value, but look, $3,200 for a frame is still a lot of money. Now, hopefully we're not out there buying these bikes just based on weight alone. Let's talk about something that is infinitely more important, and that is ride quality. I'm gonna break this up into two sections. The first is off-road, gravel, dirt riding, and the second is road riding. So let's start with gravel. Both of these bikes do exceptionally well. I've ridden a broad spectrum of trails on both of these bikes. Everything from single track up in Mammoth that I really should have had a mountain bike on, to long, smooth fire roads, to super long, chunky descents, technical climbs, sand. I've ridden it all. They both do really, really well, but I think there is a clear winner here, and that is the Crux. The Crux just feels much more planted, it feels stable, but it still retains that snappiness and responsiveness that you feel in the upper on the climbs and the descents. When it comes to ride quality on the road, both of these bikes do an excellent job of quickly making you forget that you are on a bike that has clearance for 40mm tires and that can easily rip the gravel trail that's just on that hill right over there. I think on this one, the open upper takes the cake. It has a shorter wheelbase, lower bottom bracket, and it just feels more like a road bike. It's a little bit more snappy, it's a little bit more responsive, there's no lag time, and the handling is very road bike-esque. It may not be as sharp as the Tarmac or the Athos, but it is really, really good. It feels like an all-road bike. It feels like a road bike that was also designed to go off-road. Just like weight, I don't think you can have a discussion about these bikes without considering the aesthetics of each frame set. I genuinely appreciate the understated nature of these two bikes. For once, I finally had a bike that didn't feel and look like a giant billboard. The open upper is very simple. It's matte black. It's got a gloss letter open kind of on the down tube, but inside so you can kind of barely see it. It just looks really sharp, really clean, and it's a look that I really appreciate. Like the upper frame, I feel like the Crux frame is a bit understated. There were a handful of frames that I could have chosen, and I decided to go with one that I felt was understated, just like the open frame. Specialized calls this color the satin brushed liquid silver, gloss black, smoke marble, gold diamond dust. I personally call it black, silver, and gold. I first saw it at Sea Otter the day that the Crux launched, and it's absolutely beautiful. It's unlike any bike that I've ever had. And like most bikes, the website photos don't do the colors and patterns justice. Beautiful in person. On the website, it just looks okay. So when it comes to aesthetics, visually, I think both of these bikes are 10 out of 10 in their respective looks, so I'd give it a tie. At the end of the day, both of these are great bikes, and I think that's what makes this decision so difficult, is you have a great bike with the open upper and a great bike with the new Crux, each with their own quirks and features. For me personally, it boiled down to tire clearance. With the open upper, the max tire size that I was able to fit was a 42mm WTB Resolute, but it was a super, super tight fit. I think open says the max tire size is 40mm. I got 42s on there. The idea of being able to run 47mm tires with a 1x drivetrain on the Crux was very intriguing to me. Ultimately, I landed on a double chainring 4835 with 43mm Gravel King SS tires, and I really, really like this setup. Both of these bikes are great, you can't go wrong. One of the things I do miss about owning the upper is when you buy an open, it feels like you're kind of like part of this family. When you reach out to anyone at Open with a question, you get a response back from the owners, the engineers. It feels like a very intimate experience owning an upper. And I can't quite say that about owning a bike from the Big S. You definitely don't get that family feel from owning that bike. That being said, they're both great bikes. I hope this has helped you make a decision between them. That's all I've got. Thanks so much.